kuita kwa jina la upendo. Macho yako yananivuta kuzito. Ukiniangalia ninelea kwanga. Hakuna mwingine kama wewe duniani. Give me your love every single day. You light my life in every kind of way. Nipe upendo nikushike milele. You and me together, there's nothing better.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. We are so enjoying that music. We always start with love songs because we are always declaring love for our customers, love for our employees, love for ourselves. So what better way to start this conversation than a declaration of love? And so for sure, you're in the right place. Love is everywhere, and we want to have a conversation that points towards just having delightful experiences, employee experiences, customer experiences, our own self experiences, and those are anchored in love. Because isn't it said that the greatest of them all is love? Yeah, so why shouldn't we celebrate love? We are celebrating love today, and we just want to have a great discussion, and we are excited. Our Mondays is when we join in once a month to have these discussions, have questions and answers, and to get ourselves excited about doing what's right and doing it well. So karibuni sana, welcome. Feel at home here. We had a very, very interesting discussion last time. In fact, we said we need to continue with this discussion where our speaker was telling us about meaning and purpose at work, belonging and ownership at work, and being able to measure that. Like, how much meaning do I have at work? How much ownership do I have at work over and above our regular KPIs? And we told ourselves, okay, this sounds good. This sounds great. This sounds wonderful. But what is at the bottom line of that? What precedes that? What comes one step before that? And we answered ourselves that it is clarity. Clarity is king. Clarity is everything. So today we want to have a conversation around handling clarity with our internal customers, handling employee experience with clarity, handling employee situations with clarity, so that when we progress and we now want to deliver delightful customer experiences, clarity is at the bottom, at the baseline, at the pillar of that. And so it is such a great pleasure this afternoon or morning or evening or wherever you are logging in from to introduce to you Julie Muridi. Julie loves people. Julie loves people. Julie is a people person. She's always connecting people, always wanting the best for people, always making sure people get what they want out of life. Julie is a human capital expert, experience strategist. This is her work. This is her life's work. This is why she lives. This is what she does. She runs InStep Business Solutions, which is an organization, a firm that helps everyone, whether you're in government and government, whether you're an SME, an organization, a not-for-profit, a business, a startup, to put your house in order, to put your human resources house in order, the people things, the process things, and just get your things in order. She loves order. She creates order, and it is in order that things thrive. She also runs Wema Resources. Wema Resources gets you to have your personal best forward. Is your CV looking okay? Is your LinkedIn profile looking okay? Are you looking for the right job in the right place? Are you positioning yourself well? Are you an organization looking for someone? Are you someone looking for an organization? And so we call her the talent whisperer. She's the talent whisperer. And so this is just, I just have to hand over to the talent whisperer this afternoon. Over to you, Julie. Please speak to us. We are here to listen to you and to learn from you. Over to you, Julie. Karibu sana.
All right, thank you so much, Carol. I hope you can hear me well, you can see me well.
Yes.
All right, that's fantastic. Thanks. Team and everybody who's on the call, thank you so much for joining. Really happy to plug in into this conversation. And as Caro has mentioned, and based on the adverts that went out, the notices, today's conversation, just has been said, is a continuation of the discussion that we started. And this is a conversation we shall continue to have, enhancing customer and employee experience, because essentially they are not mutually exclusive, as we can see. So our focus today is really to enable better customer experience through how our teams operate. So whether you're in employment, whether you're in business, and whichever sphere or industry you operate in, whichever sector, whether it's public sector or private sector, we work with teams. And essentially, we work with customers as well. And so, how do we enhance customer experience? By having good experience internally, right? So the thing is, and the truth is, where our teams are aligned and supported, then you'll have a good customer experience. And where teams don't feel supported, where they're not aligned, where you have a good employee experience internally, it will reflect externally. Your customers will definitely feel it. So while the customer comes first, I'd like to say that the employee comes first, because the employee serves the customer. And so if the employee's experience is not good, ultimately that will be reflected externally to your customers. And for today's session, we have 1 hour. There's so much we can talk about in this topic. We'll only focus on three key pillars, just touching on that. And last time's conversation began on clarity. We shall continue on that aspect of clarity. And in this case, specifically bring it down to ownership and accountability when it comes to roles, when it comes to jobs within the business, within the organization, within different teams. What does that look like, and how does it affect customer experience? We look at the documentation, and on documentation, we look at the standards that we set internally, either through the documents that we have, through policies, through procedures, through standards. How do we apply those consistently? So first of all, we need to have them, so that then we can talk about the aspect of consistency. And that is important. The documentation is important because it creates a platform, or a baseline from which everybody can operate. And then finally, we don't want to have friction internally, but we will have friction within teams, within the business. So how do we resolve that friction? How do we resolve the conflicts that affect the business performance? How do we resolve that? How do we ensure that teams have trust, they're working collaboratively, and that they're working effectively? So that's the third pillar we are going to look at in today's session. So by the end of the session, we will have covered all these aspects. And the truth for us in today's session is that we've said we cannot separate a customer experience from employee experience. And there are many quotes, or many sayings, or many speakers have spoken into this. So I've just picked one, Michael Hinshaw. He said that your employees' experience with your company, yeah, what they feel, what they experience, how the work environment affects them, it directly affects the quality of experience that they will give to your customers. Because customer experience essentially is shaped internally every single day. It has to be an intentional decision, an intentional journey to shape that customer experience every day, and not just from the front end. You must begin by shaping it from the employee's experience, because the experience from the employees, or the experience that the employees have, will ultimately affect how they serve your customers. So that's just fact. So customer experience begins from internally, begins from employee experience. So it's not separate. We can't have a separate, well, we have customer experience, we have HR, we have all these divisions and departments. You can't separate them. They are not mutually exclusive, as we will see. Now, we're going to look at this in different stories, all right? And just for us to be able to visualize, what does that mean? Because we want to bring this home, both within the organizations that we serve in your business, and within the different sectors that we are in. We want to be able to visualize and conceptualize what this really means on a day-to-day basis, so that we're not talking about terms that, we can't picture. We want to be able to walk this journey, to put ourselves in those shoes and be able to actually experience these things as an employee, as an owner, as a founder, as a team leader, and whatever role it is that you play. We work with customers and we work within setups, we work within business. So what does that really mean? So we have three stories to cover the three different pillars, and we're going to look at them both from externally and internally. All right. And so the first one is really about clarity of roles, ownership, and accountability. All right. Now, let's look at the first setup, telecommunications. Now, all of us have connected to this call. We are customers of a telecommunications company. You are either getting your internet from Zuku or from Poa or from different places. You have an internet provider and or from Safaricom, Airtel, whatever the case may be. And I dare say that each one of us have had an experience, an issue with our internet. I've never met anybody who has not had an internet experience. So at some point, I'd like to believe that each one of us has made that call to your customer service provider. So picture yourself in that scenario, or picture yourself as working there, or picture yourself in your business based on what it is that you're going to talk about. All right. So in this case, when you make a call to your service provider saying my internet is buffering, or it seems like I don't have connectivity, what's the problem? Customer service will pick that call. It could be a department, and for you in business, you as an owner that the customer is calling about the issue that they're having, your receptionist could have picked it up, or maybe as a business owner, you're the one who's handling it, or maybe customer service, you don't have a department. Maybe, there are people who handle it who may not necessarily be customer service, they are administration or whatever the case. So look at customer as service in different ways. So your customer has called, whoever picks up the issue, flags it, and logs it. All right. And they note it down and they say, the people who are going to resolve this, because we're looking at a telecommunications company, is its network. Network are the ones who provide that issue. All right. So network looks at it, reviews it, and flags it and says, our network doesn't seem unstable in that area. It seems to be actually very good. So it seems maybe why don't you send it to the field team who did the installation? So maybe the router has a problem, maybe the wires have a problem, there's a tree that's lying on the wire, so the field team needs to have a look, and the field team picks it up and they see, well, it doesn't seem that there's a problem. Their router seems okay. Everything seems okay. And they say, tell customer service, take it back to network. And this back and forth, the customer doesn't get resolved. There's no ownership of the issue. Nobody seems to be taking ownership of the issue. And the customer service team who are in touch with the customer don't have feedback for the client. So what happens? There's confusion about where is the issue really with that issue that has been raised. So the team becomes reactive and not responsive, because now the customer will be on your case. They don't have internet, they've paid for it. They're following up and it's been 2 days, you guys have not resolved it. So you become reactive, you don't have an update. You're not able to proactively update that, hey, this is what's going on. You can only react when the customer calls. And of course, there's increased customer follow-up because they're frustrated. And these are just some of the issues that come up. Okay, so you can see that an internal problem is causing an external problem. There's no ownership of the issues that the customer is facing. Who is responsible for taking that issue and running with it end to end so that that issue is resolved? Let's look at the next story in relation to this particular aspect of clarity of roles or aspects of ownership and accountability. In this case, let's think about we've made orders. Many of us have ordered from online platforms, whether it's Jumia or wherever it is, we've ordered, or maybe we run that kind of setting, or in your business you have that kind of setting or something that you can relate close to that. Now, the customer made a delivery. Maybe you sell goods, you sell shoes, you sell clothes, whatever the case may be. The customer has ordered and they've missed their delivery. All right. And maybe you have your own logistics people. Maybe you're working with third-party providers, riders, and logistics companies maybe. So in this case, it could be either internal or external. You have suppliers of services, because at the end of the day, as businesses, you collaborate to provide services to customer. So the customer has missed a delivery. Again, it was picked by the person who picks up the call, and they pass it on to operations. Perhaps it's operations, perhaps it's logistics, whatever the case may be. And operations now deals with the people on the ground. In this case, the border guys, whether external or internal. And they sit back thinking that the operations guys, the border guy is going to follow up with the customer. The border person is expecting that since they've updated you that this is what happened with the delivery, you're going to follow up with the customer. And the customer doesn't have an update. Of course, what happens? The customer follows up. Again, confusion on where could the issue be. And yet it's just about ownership. Should the border person have taken full ownership and run end to end with this? Should the logistics guys who are coordinating the border guys have taken accountability for that? Should customer service now play the role of interfacing for these two departments and run end to end because they are in between that? So this internal confusion, this internal lack of clarity on the issues that the customer is facing, and these are just examples, ultimately affect customers, and all of us can relate to that because we have been affected externally as customers, people who use services from other businesses, or even internally when you've had or experienced customers complaining about issues that don't get resolved in good time, or even with your teams that you managed, they're not resolving issues in time. All right, so that's just one, and I hope we can be able to see how ownership and accountability is out. And before I move to the next story, I just want to make sure that we are on the same page from a clarity perspective. So do you relate to these scenarios? Are they making sense? Are we able to see how ownership and accountability, or the lack of it, internally ultimately affects customer experience? If yes, if this is landing, please let's see your thumbs up coming through. If not, let's see your thumbs down, and we'll be able to see where to pick up. So great, thank you so much, Caroline. Anybody else? If you're resonating, let's see your thumbs up. Thank you, Naderia. Thank you so much. Lots of thumbs up that are coming through. Glad that we can relate to this. All right, so let's move to the next story and see how these experiences internally affect the service externally. So our second pillar was on documentation. Sorry, the first one was on clarity. The second one is on documentation. And in this case, I also still have two stories to talk about. In this case, let's talk about banking. We all bank, our business banks. You take money somewhere, you're either on the Safaricom platform, you're either on platforms like Loop, you're either with a bank, whatever the case may be, or with PayPal, whatever the case may be, money is going somewhere. And or you bank, you have a personal account, most of us do, and you've checked the statement, there's something wrong with that statement. You're being charged for something that you should not be charged on. All right. And for every one of the services that we provide or that we procure, they are governed by policy statements, they are governed by procedures. So when it comes to refunds, for example, when it comes to goods, the process of that, we have procedures, whether they're documented or not. There are policies that are in place to guide us, especially in corporate. We are familiar with that. Everything that we do is guided by a policy. All right. Within our businesses, even if it's undocumented, we are very clear that A leads to B, leads to C, and these are the people who drive that. So when you talk about, in this case, policies, we could be talking about procedures or a process in this case. So there's been a dispute about a bank charge, all right? And this customer calls, and again, whoever you consider to be customer service has picked up the call, and they've understood the issue, and it's addressed immediately. They get to the bottom line and they get this issue resolved immediately. But this customer, that was a bank statement on their account, all right? But still on their account, they have now a card statement. We have debit cards, we have credit cards, and all of us, are familiar with that. Or maybe on your M-Pesa statement, there's a charge that's on it. You've looked at the statement and there's something that's not tying. And the customer now walks to the branch or walks to Safaricom and says this charge is not making sense. So those guys at the front desk say, this is really not our area. We are going to escalate this issue to the department that is concerned. All right. So they forward that to the department that is concerned, and it takes, a day or two, still no feedback to the customer. Now the customer decides, because I can see there's another issue still on payment, instead of me walking to customer service, let me call the card department, that actually deals with this issue, so that I find out where the issue is, and they speak to cards, and the cards department are like, sorry, this one we are not taking care of, So what happens? The customer is frustrated, all right? Now they are taken back and forth. Even the cards department now has refused. But remember, a similar charge had been sorted out in the beginning. So one department has one way of sorting out the issue because this is the way they know things should be handled. Another department feels, no, this one I think needs escalation, it needs a process and everything. So they've handled it that way. The third department is like, this one should not be paid, should not be so this one we're refusing. So same issue handled differently by three different people. So what happens? So, and all departments feel that they are correct, they are right in handling the issue based on how they have understood the policy. So, what happens is there's a question on internally on exactly how should we be handling this issue. Again, a matter of confusion. Who should take accountability for these issues? Because it's the same issues handled differently. All right. Time is taken and spent handling issues that we should not be focusing on. Okay. Now, obviously, the customer lacks, there's loss of customer confidence because you guys seem to be speaking different languages for the same problem, and we've seen that happening even in our own businesses. Again, customer frustrations, customer escalations. Now, the second one, still on the same issue. Let's look at it still on a payment issue, a refund. Maybe from your business, somebody bought those shoes, those clothes, those bags, whatever the case may be. You went to Nakumat, you bought something. Now Nakumat is defunct. So you went to Carrefour, you bought something, and it's not what you had paid for, whatever the case may be. So you need a refund. Okay. So same case. It's a refund that you want for the goods that you bought. This customer walks in and or calls and they request a refund, and the first processor processes it very quickly, and they say, yeah, this one should be processed. But because it's a refund and you've brought in the good, we need to take it back to the warehouse so that they can get you the right good. Now the good gets to the warehouse and the warehouse guys are like, this one we are not refunding. It's been opened or it's been used, whatever the case may be. Or if it was food, it's been tested, whatever the case may be, or whatever the case may be. And so they get back to, so customer service or whoever is customer service gets back to the customer and says, this one we are not resolving. That's what the logistics guys have said. What happens? Pushback from the customer because they're like, but we had a conversation and we went through the facts about this and you told me I'm going to get refunded. So even customer service or whoever you consider customer service in your business is caught up in the middle. Maybe it's the owner who, was escalated to, and now they've said, no, this is what should have happened, So that internal confusion ultimately affects the customer. The customer now becomes the grass in between because one team feels this way, your receptionist feels, yeah, for that service, actually, you're right, this is how it should be. But the owner feels, or the manager feels, no, that one, this is how it should be. So who gets affected? It's customer service because of internal issues. Our processes, our policies, our documentation. Is it even there? Does it exist? Do we have a common understanding of that across board? Clarity. Are we applying it consistently across board? And there are many examples we could give to this. So for today's session, we have picked examples that are related to customers because most of us deal with we are external facing. So how have we ensured that clarity or alignment internally so that we don't have this kind of problems? Again, before we proceed, just on documentation, I want to see whether this is landing, whether it makes sense on how, beyond accountability of roles, how we document our processes and implement them, how those affect the customers internally. Let's see by a show of hands. I want to see, and I can see my video is off. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Let me just put it back on. Is it making sense for us how this affects our customer experience? Let's see your thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, thank you so much, Caroline. Lucy, great. And Valerius, you have a question. We want to take the questions at the end. So please type in your question or just note it down. We're going to go to questions. Um, but if possible, you can note it in the chat so that then Carol can begin noting so that we address them all together. Thank you all for your thumbs up. Now I want to look at the third pillar. We come to that, and this has to do with team effectiveness and trust. So I want to go back to the presentation. I had come to Zoom so that I could see the thumbs up. Now, this comes to conflict resolutions and frictions that we experience internally. Frictions because we are working in silos, friction because we are not collaborating well, friction because we distrust each other as teams. Those kind of frictions are what I'm talking about. So the first example is from the healthcare industry. And we can relate to that because we've all had experience with that. You're either working in a hospital, you've taken somebody to the hospital, or to the clinic, whatever the case may be, we've had that experience. Now, a patient is scheduled for a procedure, or you are scheduled for a procedure, or your relative is scheduled for a procedure, and the front desk pushes back for a turnaround to manage the patient flow. All right. So there's a delay. You've gone to hospitals and you found delay. You were given this time, or you were told it's this day, and you are told these are the documents that are needed. And again, when you land there with everything or whatever the case may be, there's a delay. All right. Now, who takes accountability of that? Is it the accounting team? Is it the clinical team? Is it the billing team? What happens with that? Because the patient has come with all the documentation, the billing insists there should have been another something. So back and forth happens about that. I have had that personal experience, so it can be a very frustrating experience. And I know for people who've worked with clinics also that happens. All right, maybe you've done all the bookings as a customer, and when you go there it's going to be seamless, so you're held there and things don't happen as they should go. So of course there's a blame game. You guys did not provide the customer with all the requirements, so how are you expecting us to serve them? All right. Or whatever the case may be. So there's weak team collaboration. Teams are not collaborating well, and the customer is the one who is left hanging. So the customer issue is delayed in terms of feedback, and there's frustration, and the customer, escalations, and the frustration of even just having to wait, or having to go back and forth, or having to delay that even further by, more days, so that's the kind of situation you're talking about when teams are not collaborating well. Um, Recently I've had this kind of situation where I'm getting a service, and when I get there with everything, they tell me, oh, you also needed to have brought, oh, we forgot that you should have. And I'm like, why don't you list everything together so that then I processes everything together? Or you've gone through the documentation and you said it's okay. And when the customer gets there, it's actually not okay. But whoever looked at it kind of skimmed through that. So the customer gets frustrated with that. So again, the internal back and forth that we take our customers through, because you can see these things are not mutually exclusive of lack of clarity. Again, the frictions that are happening between teams, even on roles that should be clear, all these things interplay. So how do we resolve that so that the customer does not get frustrated? Let's think about the hospitality industry. All right, we've all dealt with either a cafe, or we eat somewhere. I mean, all of us have gone somewhere to eat. Now, you're spending somewhere, you've made a booking to spend at a certain facility. Now you've complained about the facility. You've gone and you found the bathroom is not working, or something in your room is not working, the clinic is not working, the kettle is not working, and you've raised an issue with the front office, who apologize and they commit to immediate resolution. You go about your business, but then housekeeping doesn't resolve that issue in time. In fact, they feel maybe you overstated how the bathroom is not working, or whatever the case may be, but they don't resolve it in time or to the standards that front office had committed to have this resolved. So now the duty manager updates the guest that this is going to be delayed further, and maybe for 1 or 2 days. That simple issue that you thought was a simple issue of replacing the kettle, of resolving the bathroom, so changing your room because you're getting cold water, is not resolved in time, and it becomes a frustration to the customer. All right, so housekeeping, the front office, the frontline manager, management is misaligned on how this issue should be resolved. So what happens again? Blame game. Teams are not collaborating well. The customer escalations, loss of trust, because likely you will not go there. You've returned food before, maybe it came with something, and you get, different feedback from what the person or the waitress who was serving you committed to, and you get frustrated. And many of us have not gone back to those institutions because of that. Or within our businesses, customers have not come back because the commitment that they got from one team, the other team was unable to deliver. And management did not take timely or conclusive or what we call relevant action to resolve that. So you've lost customers, just like you have pulled out your patronage to certain establishments because of these kind of things. How many of you can do this kind of scenarios where teams are not collaborating well and you have lost customers or had issues within your business because of internal frictions that you don't even know about, that business is happening or that you're facing within your business? Anyone who can relate to that? Or are we running perfect businesses where we don't have customers running away because we were unable to resolve these things? I believe that we all have. Thank you. So, for all those scenarios, today's session was not really to talk into them with bullet points. It was for us to be able to visualize what that really looks like from a real scenario and be able to picture that in your business and what that really looks like. All right. And this is not a conclusive discussion, but it was for us to see that we all face the same challenges across businesses. And the key problem emanates from poor employee experiences. There's no way you're going to have poor customer experience when you do not have poor employee experience. Building a good employee experience ultimately leads to a good customer experience, and I hope we can see that. So, before we get that, is ultimately, if you have poor employee experience, and thank you for the questions that you sent earlier, one of them was very relevant to this. What happens is your customers or your employees end up feeling frustrated, right? They end up feeling that this is not working. They're not able to resolve customers' issues well enough. So, what happens is disengagement. All right. And that's what we want to look at next, how disengagement shows up and affects your experience, customer experience for your customers. Now, the truth about engagement, and even before we share in the chat, is that if your employees don't feel valued, neither will your customers. If your employees feel that things are not working internally, then ultimately they will not be able to serve your customers well. And so there'll be a disconnect about that. So very quickly, let's put in the chat why we believe that employees would disengage from work. And we can pick a lot of examples from what it is that we've shared and even beyond that, because we're talking about a good employee experience. So the things that we've looked at on clarity, on documentation, on conflict resolution, disengagement goes beyond the three things. Today, we've picked just those three pillars so that we can be able to visualize. But ultimately, employee engagement or engagement within the business is an output of so many other things. Just 2 minutes to type into the chat, and Caro is going to be reading them as they come through on why your employees will be feeling just as you review the situation in your own business or in your own setup. Why do you feel disengaged if you're disengaged? Why are your colleagues disengaged if they're disengaged? Why do you feel or do you perceive there's disengagement across the business beyond the reasons that we've talked about on the three pillars? Let's have them coming through, and Carol, you can just read them through. We'll just take about 2-3 minutes on this one so that then we can proceed to close.
Yeah, the stories are really landing. Wanjo is saying he's been a victim of all those things that you have said, which are true. At hospitality, telco, logistics, all of those, we've really felt those kinds of situations where the employee experience is trickling into the customer experience. So the answers coming through for disengagement is delayed salaries, unclear boundaries, office politics. These are reasons why our internal customers would be feeling just so disengaged. This is what's coming through. Really heavy issues. Yeah. Those are the three so far. Julie?
Okay, all right. Thanks for that. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And yes, you're right. Those are they're actually just are a few of the ones that affect. But yes, delayed salaries, not feeling valued, issues not being resolved. These are just some of the things that we had picked. And this is not conclusive. Remember, it's a continuing discussion, and these sessions are really to create awareness for us to be able to take action within our setups to resolve these issues so that we can have better employee experiences, and hence better ones are not clear. Then obviously that will lead to disengagement. All right. When billing said, but you should have told them that they needed to also come with 1, 2, 3 things. That means there was something that was not clear right there. Poor management, leadership plays a lot into this. When leadership is not able to lead people well, manage people well, motivate people, provide clarity, etc., that can lead to disengagement. And it does lead to disengagement, a toxic working environment where employees are just surviving. You're walking on eggshells. You're never sure about what to do because you can't even ask a question. You're afraid to make mistakes. That leads to disengagement. And people are just then working for money, or surviving the environment, just to keep their job, feeling undervalued, underappreciated, your efforts going above board is not even being recognized, being downplayed. That leads to disengagement, lack of career progression. We all want to grow, so that brings a problem. That brings an internal issue, which ultimately will affect the service levels across board. And anxiety. COVID brought anxiety. Our current economic situation, which we talk about daily, brings anxiety. We've had companies closing shop because they're not able to sustain business. So that brings anxiety. You never know whether your business will be able to survive. Not having customers or not being able to maintain customers brings anxiety, because if the business is not sustainable, then there's potential job loss. So everybody is on eggshells, not knowing whether they have a job or not. Stress brought about by many things. And what are the signs? Reduced performance. It could be change in behavior. When your employees change behavior, or even you begin to change behavior, thinking, I don't feel like going to work. Should I take a sick off? That should make you think something is changing. And it begins with those small things. It begins with those small things of an employee who was having their camera on in meetings all the time and participating. Now it just doesn't feel like putting on their camera. What's really going on there? All right. Negativity. Employees, raising their frustrations. Uku, these things don't happen. Uku, you can't expect people to change. This kind of place, this is what happens. Raising their frustrations, their dissatisfactions. And as a customer, you can attest to that. When you've dealt with customer service or the business and they tell you, here, anyway, that one will not take one day. That one, the way I know this place, that's a customer, experiencing what they experience, the employee experiences internally. So these are just some of the signs. And what are the results of disengagement? We've already seen them in the examples that we've given there. This customer in blue is heavily frustrated. They've escalated. They're having to escalate. They're having to go on Twitter. Like for me, I know there are businesses that I know I will not get response unless I go to Twitter and post publicly. We know those businesses, like those ones. That tells you there's a problem internally. So those are the results of disengagement. And we all know them and we've seen them. So in closing, before we come to other questions, what we are noting today is that unresolved internal gaps within your business or within business setups become customer pain points, sorry for that, and continuous employee frustrations. So building a good employee experience becomes a daily effort. All right, it's a daily activity to address the gaps internally so that you can have a good employee, a customer experience. So I'd like to turn this to you as an action. Remember, this should come back to you to be able to see where it is that you can take action. So, from what we've gone through today, those three pillars, or how you've been able to visualize the pain points internally, what's the one thing that you're carrying today that you have learned from this session that you can begin to fix in your team from today, taking cognizance of the fact that businesses are run by different people. So you might only be able to take what can you take action on within your department that you have control over as you create awareness for the wider business or for the wider team. As a business owner, what can you begin to action today as you begin to create awareness and empowering your team and capacitating your team to be able to address the gaps that you have noted your business has within your line of work, whatever it is that you do, and within your space, there is something that you can begin. We have 15 minutes where we can have a discussion or any comments that you have that we can, begin to pick up from there. Carol, over to you.
Right. I was just about to tell you that you're breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's an internet issue. Okay, Sasawa. All right. Yeah, yeah. We follow through with the slides that you shared towards the end. You have asked call to action. You've asked us to note in our notebook what's that one thing that we are going to prioritize from the three main areas you've spoken about. The stories have been very, very real. I felt the pain of those customers. There are two questions here which I think have some similar thread. Yeah, Valerius is asking, how do you handle a situation where the client reaches out to a department, they follow up later with a different department, assuming that the customer service is aware of it, and they are not. So there's poor communication, something wasn't communicated there, and the customer is now seeing the break. And then there's another question here from Joyce that says, great insights, Julie. Is repeatedly telling the customer that their issue has been escalated to a different team helpful? Is that helpful? Is that transparency helpful? Or is that too much information that's adding no value? How do you create a balance? Both of these are communication questions. Over to you, Julie.
Thanks, Carol. And yes, there's a thread there about communication, about clarity. And communication needs, the bedrock of that communication needs to be clarity. All right. So that we are operating from the same page and that our response to the customer will be on the same page. So that communication before it goes out to the customer, all the team players internally need to be on the same page. So what happens is with big organizations, they end up working in silos and they forget to collaborate. And that begins from leadership. If leadership is not collaborating well, then teams will not collaborate, especially teams that are front facing. So our first example was telecommunications, right? So that it comes to customer, there's networks and there's field sales. What are you communicating? If the leadership of those three divisions do not collaborate well, you don't expect that the teams will collaborate well. Equally in our businesses, as leadership, collaboration begins from leadership. So you will lead on collaboration. And when you're collaborating well, it's much easier now to synchronize your communication. All right. It's not about, in our department, this is what we do. No. As a business, what do we do? Do we have the same understanding? So, as a business owner, drive that. As a team leader, drive that collaboration. Seek out that collaboration with other teams so that you ensure that the customer service going out is effective. It begins from internally. Are you communicating the same thing? Because while customer service is not aware and they're communicating one thing, already it shows a disconnect in understanding. Ensure that you're reading from the same page. And one of the things, if that's a challenge for you as an organization, begin from you. What can you do within your team to ensure collaboration, even if it means going out of your way to ensure that you're reading from the same page, the same script, you know? Just to
Yeah.
ensure that the customer is happy, because the ultimate beneficiary here is the customer, but beginning with the employees. So drive that collaboration in as far as is practically possible within your business. That's what I would say to both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're talking about everything rising and falling on the shoulders of leadership. I think if there's a consistent complaint that's coming through and there's a breakdown in communication, just like you said, Julie, what are we doing to see root cause? What are we doing to ensure that it resolves itself? You're not saying that complaints will never be there, but if a customer has faced this and then faced it again, there's an issue, there's a real-time issue there that needs us to go backwards and fix the documentation, fix the communication so that the customer experiences are better. There's Joguna here who is talking about thank you for this amazing conversation. Question: if we've pushed and prioritized on mandatory product or service training to ensure that we empower our staff to be able to share quick responses to clients, whatever is heavy for that team, then at this point we escalate. But it's a response. But the team do not need to keep escalating something that can be resolved with ease. Yes, it's a comment, it's an addition, it's an augmentation that Juguna is talking about, that not everything needs to be an escalation. That is true. You've talked about training. And Juguna, as you talk about training, P. Juguna, Julie, let me ask you something that came through the registration form. Somebody asked that people keep on saying that we should employ for attitude, we should engage for attitude, we should hire for attitude, and then train for skill. Okay. But Julie, how do you just hire purely on attitude? Does there not need to be some level of already existing training? Or as Pin Juguna is saying here, we just keep on training once they have arrived. What's your take on this? Is this a cliche thing? Hire for attitude and train for skill?
All right. No, that's a great question. Yes, and it keeps on running across. But yes, hire for attitude and train for skill. You definitely need to have people who have the right mindset for the job. And that's really what attitude means. But beyond that, they also need to have the capability for the job. And sometimes that can be seen through potential. All right. So the potential for the job, which can be acquired by either their knowledge or having done something similar or that can be correlated, then that's what we mean by skill. But essentially, I don't think you can disconnect the two. But you can be able to tell, even by personality, whether somebody can do the job or they've done the job, by something similar. So while they may not have done the actual job, they can actually do it. So when you hire, first of all, clarity, ensure you're hiring the right people for the job. What comes first is the job. This is what is required in this job. Then you fit somebody in the job. So somebody must match that job. What happens with businesses is they hire people because maybe this is your friend, or this one vile namjua anaweza fanya hiyo, but they don't match the job for what it is that you're hiring for. So hire the right skill for the job. Don't fit the job into the person. Fit the person into the existing job, because the organization exists for a certain mandate, the job exists for a certain mandate. So you need to hire the right person. So that's the first thing that organizations get wrong. They don't get the right people. All right. So if you have the right person for the job because they meet the criteria of the job, then you can capacitate them further as you capacitate your organization, as you work on the internal employee environment. All right. So regarding attitude and skill, they should match the job itself. And when we talk about attitude, it's the mindset, because somebody can have the right skills but they don't have the right mindset. They don't have the right culture. They are not collaborators. They are not team players. That's what we mean by attitude. All right. But if they also do not have the skills for the job and they have all those great things, then they're also not right for the job, because you don't just want to hire a great person for the job and they don't skill-wise meet that job, because they will not perform the requirements. So job-wise, skill wise they must meet the requirements. Then now you come to attitude, ensure that they are meeting they have the right mindset for the job. Then internally train everyone, because the right environment, all of us play into that. And the training is for everybody, or the capacitation is for everybody to be able to get it right. So that's what I would say, Carol.
Right, absolutely right. And Catherine here is talking about exactly what you're talking about, the entire internal employee environment, because she's agreeing absolutely that employee experience means great customer experience. However, with it needs leadership, it needs management commitment, it needs the top to set the pace and the tone. Otherwise, all these broken things will just spill over onto the customer. And so the attitude thing you're talking about, Julie, the mindset thing, it starts with leadership. It must just absolutely be driven from the top. Culture is driven from the top, else the employees will just be struggling on and on and on endlessly. And there will be no great customer experience being experienced by customers. Lucy is saying both attitude and skill are necessary. Yeah. Both of those are necessary. And we have a quick comeback from Jiguna, who says it's easier to train on product than attitude. If someone decides they hate the job already, it's tricky. It's tricky. Yeah, and time is flying so fast. I wonder where it has gone. Julie, where do we find you to ask you all these questions that are coming fast and furious beyond this 1 hour that we had today? Team, we also have a fantastic WhatsApp platform where we have questions and answers answered, so we can put that in the chat. You can join us on WhatsApp. But Julie, where do we find you? Where do we find you? Yeah, I can see your screen is up. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Carol. Okay, so that is where you find me, guys. And based on what Carol mentioned, Instep basically collaborates with clients, mainly on HR advisory. So we work with SMEs as growth partners. So on matters to do, everything to do with people on the HR front, that's what we do. And we've noticed that, because we also do talent acquisition, we need to capacitate from the talent acquisition side. So that is what Wema Resources really does. So if you need to assistance with your career, you need career guidance, you need assistance with your CV, job preparation, that's what we do at Wema Resources. And that is where you can find me.
So much. But Julie, how taking your quotable quote and your tweetable tweet, we should not fit the job to the person. We should fit the person to the job, and then we shall then have great attitudes in place and be able to run with having great customer experiences from great employee experiences. So Julie, we want to thank you for coming. Thank you for your wisdom. We will call you back. We haven't even had enough of you yet. So please do come back. We will look for you from the places that you have said. Good people, we are coming to the end of our lunch hour. Lunch has been served hot and sweet. We've talked about clarity, documentation, and how to manage issues as they arrive. Please keep your questions coming. Please keep your thoughts coming. Please join the WhatsApp platform. Let's keep these conversations going. We are here to change this nation, change this continent, change the world through great employee experiences and delightful customer experiences as well. So thank you very much all. Have a beautiful week ahead, and we shall see you in a month's time talking about how to make things work and make them happen. So thanks everyone. Bye and be blessed, and see you in 1 month from now. Thank you for coming, and have a beautiful afternoon ahead.